We'd like to begin this podcast by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk Noongar people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Maleficent, welcome back to episode 29 of
Howdy.
Talking Couch Potatoes. That's your new nickname now, I've decided.
Maleficent,
What do you think?
No, I like it.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got a great one today. Great one last week. Wasn't it nice to talk to Emily?
I know, she's so fun. And really, yeah, she's a good human.
She's a good advocate. She works her ass off.
And I didn't realise her little baby Arthur was in the studio next door.
Oh, Arthur.
And I saw him. He's so cute.
A future advocate in the making.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Emily. You're awesome. Please come back and see us again. Someone else who's awesome, Maddie.
Yes.
SABBR, Staffy and Bully Breed Rescue. I'm really curious on this one because I think there's some parallels around how greyhounds have been stereotyped as racing dogs and not pets, and staffies and bullies sometimes get stereotyped as aggressive guard dogs.
Fighting dog, yep.
So
not so desirable as a pet.
Yeah, I'm keen to blow apart some of those misconceptions. So looking forward to that. Before we do it though, Mel, you've got a bit of news, a bit of controversial news.
Yes, we do. Finally, after some years, Racing and Wagering have their Statement of Corporate Intent written and presented to the Minister for Racing prior to the hearings, because some of the stuff in here has already been discredited is a strong word, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
Okay, so they speak about foster the development, promote the welfare and ensure the integrity of metropolitan country, thoroughbred racing, harness racing and greyhound racing, in the interests of the long-term viability of the racing industry.
Yep.
In WA. In other words, we have to look after the animals
so we can
in
keep
order
going.
to keep going.
So we can keep gambling and making money and stuff.
Number 2, carry on the business of operating an off-course wagering service on races and certain sporting and other events trading as the TAB. So in other words, keep the tab open. Then under that it says, in performing our functions, we must act in accordance with prudent commercial principles and endeavour to make a profit.
Right.
So when you've got that as your underlying comment of your strategic purpose, how is welfare ever going to be your number one priority?
Right.
When you're trying to make a profit?
The mission statement ultimately says, let's keep making money, folks.
Prudent commercial principles.
Yeah, there's a subtext or the read between the lines there, that lip service to let's do the right thing, and then what's underlined is let's be prudent, commercial. So that means let's not forget that this is about profit.
Exactly.
Which of course it is, and we wouldn't expect it not to be. But let's not pretend this is a lifestyle or a way of being that's important to the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just be upfront and
we
honest.
like to gamble on dogs running against
and
each other.
possibly dying. And don't say that's not what it's all about. To achieve financial sustainability, RAWA is required to operate at a break-even point. That's inclusive of a normal level of capital expenditure. In other words, they've still got to make a break even, so they can't be running at a loss. After they've paid participants, paid their employees, they normally would have a level of capital expenditure, meaning upgrades, making things better, all the rest of it. RAWA has in recent years accumulated reserves which enable the delivery of multiple infrastructure projects. With that surplus now fully allocated, a return to the pre-pandemic model of government-funded infrastructure is required. So it is critical that the funding provided to the racing industry continues to grow year on year to guarantee the industry's needs are met, while securing the employment of the more than 25,000 industry participants, including the more than 10,000 full-time equivalent jobs supported by the racing industry throughout WA. So that basically is saying, and our Treasurer has already signed off on this and agreed to this, year on year, Racing and Wagering are going to be asking the state government for money for any infrastructure they require.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. If we could translate that into simple terms,
Yep.
What I heard was we need government money to survive, or we're not going to survive.
Yeah,
And make a
if
profit.
they want to make any improvements to infrastructure.
Yeah, which you would need to do. You can't just...
Well, anything with any of the tracks.
Yeah.
The kennels. And don't forget, infrastructure is required within greyhound racing because that is actually a government entity, whereas harness and thoroughbred also have their own funding through their own clubs.
Yeah. The other thing I heard, Mel, was the number of people that the industry is supporting. If you want to know the real figures, go back to episode 14 where we had a chat with Sebastian Broadhurst, who did an economic review and gave the real numbers of employees and staff that rely on this industry. It's a fraction of what this mob suggests. Challenge us if you think you got a different opinion. Mel,
we will put a link to Statement of Corporate Intent on our website, so anybody that's interested in having a gander can do.
Do a deep dive. Unlike some of the pro racers that give us a hard time, we do lots of research and fact-checking. We do a deep dive into this stuff rather than throw out personal insults and so on and so forth. I'm getting a bit hyped up, Mel. It must be the end of the day. Let's move on to something a little lighter, if we could. You're gonna not talk for 12 hours, I believe, or you're gonna shut your mouth and not say a word, just to raise money for the beautiful creatures on the 16th of November. Is that correct? Oh, she's nodding. Nell's nodding. So it's not the 16th yet, Mel. And if you want to get involved, you can go to freethehounds.com.au. There's info on there.
And I'm doing it for my girl Anna, who I got from Greyhound Adoptions WA.
Beautiful Anna.
Who I lost just over 2 months ago. And I want another doggy to get her home in honour of her. I'm not ready to get a greyhound just yet. Another one. Because my Gina is doing okay on her own so far.
I'll chuck in $100 right now just to get you started. How's that?
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, that'll come out of my pay for the podcast, right?
You're on.
Alrighty, what else is going on? We mentioned last episode Pride Fest is on the 17th of November. That's
right.
Barely a week or so away.
Yeah, next weekend. After I'll be all chatty McChat face there because I won't
Jesus
have talked.
Christ! Don't go near. Good luck, people. Don't approach for small talk.
I know. You got to have a long conversation. But we also have our AGM coming up on the 30th of November, which we would love to get our supporters to. If you're in WA, if you're in the city at that time, the AGM is from 11 a.m. at the Bassendean Hotel.
Oh, I used to work there, Mel.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. From 12:30 though, we will be having lunch and just a few drinks together, just to thank everybody and finally maybe sit and chat without a dog.
That'll be bring back great memories of me being a skimpy barmaid back there, doing the $2 flip. I'll be there, Mel.
Very good.
I'm going to be there at the AGM, so if you want to come and say good day and we can talk podcast, Grey the Hounds, Free the Greys, Grey. I'll definitely be there. Everyone should be there. What an incredible opportunity to meet, greet, network, plan for the future.
Absolutely. Just sit back and relax a bit.
Yeah, have a
beer.
Can you have a bevy?
Chat.
Can I have a bevy or two, Mel?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll definitely be there. That's about it, I think, for what's going on.
Yeah, we're going to wind down a bit then for Christmas, and then we have the information coming out in the new year, or we will do, the next sitting of Parliament to the election about how the petition went, and also whether or not we get an inquiry.
Yeah, I'm on tenterhooks, Mel.
Same here.
I feel there's something in the air at the moment. I really feel like we were chatting earlier. We do a lot of planning for the podcast. Sometimes I stay over Mel's house for a week just to help the bonding with the podcast relationship.
That's because Jem's kicked him out. He's got to sleep on the couch.
But we were thinking together that there does seem to be a little momentum, and there seems like there's possibility in the air at the moment. Strike while the iron's hot.
Yep, and realise that something's got to give right now.
Yeah.
Even if you're a pro racer and that is all you ever want to do, you've got to understand that this is unsustainable right now.
Yeah.
Rehoming these dogs is unsustainable.
You'd have to have blinkers on, wouldn't you? You'd
100%.
have to have a very myopic view of things if you don't realise that at least we can talk about we call it inhumane, unsustainable.
Outdated.
You can't argue the unsustainable part right now. We can have a conversation about the outdated and the inhumane. Well, not really. But you certainly can't argue the unsustainable.
Not with all the other impact that this has on other dog breeds and on people from a gambling perspective. Something else interesting that I found out, and we will go down this route more next year, is that the tax income that our government earns from gambling is only 6% of the total tax that our state takes in.
Right.
6% is
from all gambling?
All gambling.
Yeah, right. So the percentage that would be greyhound gambling from that would be another fraction
smaller.
Again. Because you've got the casino, you've got the...
You've got lotteries, you've got thoroughbred, harness, all the rest.
So when we talk about trying to bring an end to this industry, and when people talk about you're decimating communities and people who make a living,
It's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
It is. I understand that it is important to people and they feel like something is being taken away from them. I get that. It's difficult. But we've had governments that have shut down real industries and thousands of people have lost their jobs. And you know what? Everybody survived. We're talking about a couple of handfuls of people that do it as a hobby.
Yeah. And let's not forget, there came a time when we decided that slavery was outdated, unsustainable and inhumane. I'm sure there were slave owners who really loved their slaves.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure they got quite impacted by the fact that they didn't have them anymore and they couldn't do this slavery thing anymore. But we decided it just wasn't part of the community that we wanted. So sorry, pro-racers. Your time's come. I hope you had fun, but it's time to move on and do something else.
Absolutely.
It's time to move on to our interview with Maddie, the dog welfare manager with SABBR, Staffy and Bully Breed Rescue. And we're going to hear all about it, what kind of work they're doing in that area, maybe how it links a little bit to the work Free the Hounds are doing with greyhounds, and just sort of have a chat about beautiful creatures in general and maybe how they're perceived in certain ways.
Absolutely. Like the Staffy breed and the Bully breed notoriously do get victimised a bit too.
Yeah.
And again, it boils down to what treatment they receive from the owners originally.
Can't wait to hear all about it. So welcome aboard, Maddie. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Can you tell us a little bit before we sort of dive into it about your sort of role? And is it SABBR or SABBR?
We say SABBR.
SABBR because it's got like a
lightsaber.
Yeah,
feel like we're like that some
The
days.
force is with you.
How long have you been there? What do you do? What do they do? What's it like?
I've been a volunteer with SABBR for 5 years now. I started off fostering and slowly became more involved. Now I've got the role where I oversee all our dog coordinators who then help our foster carers. And I mean, it's a very busy role, but it's very enjoyable. So yeah, SABBR started in 2008.
Yep.
And we started purely because bully breeds, staffies, they've got such a bad rep. And I think we sort of wanted to get together a rescue that is focused on the bully breeds and the staffy breeds. They're not advocated enough, I don't think. And I think we really try to do that, especially throughout WA, mainly focused in Perth Metro, but we definitely help regional areas where we can. Yeah.
And you, I noticed from the bio that you're committed to the rescue, rehabilitation, rehoming,
Yes.
and responsible ownership of Staffordshire Bull Terriers and bully breed dogs, including the crossbreeds. You mentioned they've got a bad name, a bad perception.
Yeah, I think you definitely get some negative comments on Staffy and Bully breeds, and we really want to work to give the public the right perception of them, and they're loving dogs. Any dog, any breed can be bred to be a fighting dog or, you know, have negative traits, but for most part, Staffies and Bully breeds are the most loving dogs. Family dogs, most of our dogs are going into family homes, and touch wood, we've never had any problems, or not big problems, you know, and I guess that's part of our rehabilitation is working with dogs. I always say put your best paw forward and we make sure that every dog is their best self going forward into adoption, rehabilitating them with their dog reactivity or anything that they have. So yeah, just working on all that.
It reminds me a little bit of I've spoken before on the podcast, my perception of greyhounds was that they're not companion animals. They're racing dogs. I thought they were aggressive. Whenever I'd see them, they'd have muzzles on, and the idea that they could be loving companion animals was absolutely foreign to me until I discovered them and realised they're the best breed ever made, and we really possibly could just have greyhounds in this world and be very happy.
Ooh,
there we go. I'm being provocative. But I was going to say, same with the pit bull myth. My perception was that they were intrinsically aggressive dogs, junkyard dogs, guard dogs. So I'm really keen to hear because that's shifted quite a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
I was watching a documentary recently when dogs started to become domesticated and came away from the wolf style. Dogs realised early on that it was going to be survival of the friendliest.
Yeah.
I need to be friendly in order to survive or coexist with these people. If I'm friendly, they'll feed me, they'll look after me, they'll let me sleep near their fire. Yeah. So that's how the evolution from a wild animal to a domestic animal actually occurred.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think you're exactly right when you say we humans change it from either being a companion dog, survival of the friendliest, or to survival of the meanest or the fastest.
Yeah, which also speaks to not only how loving these companions are, but how clever they are. You know, we're dealing with a creature that can adapt itself.
Well, that's what this documentary was saying, how incredibly clever canines are in order to be able to survive. And that's why they are man's best friend.
Almost similar to with greyhounds. You can choose to bring out the beautiful couch potato, soft, loving creature, or you can bring out lightning fast, adrenaline-based racing dogs. Which do you think they'd prefer to be if they were given a choice?
They wouldn't need a trainer if they knew how to race and chase already.
Yeah,
they'd be doing it on their own.
Yeah.
We've veered off, but I do.
It's okay. It's interesting. I'm loving it.
No, I do want to really have a think about the intersection or the cross section, because Mel made a comment earlier. The idea of certain breeds being perceived in certain ways, which means they get treated in certain ways. I get a sense that with Staffies and Bullies, there might be a bit of that lingering perception.
I think people still see them as the guard dog or the protection. Yes, they can do that and they will do that, but not every dog is like that. It's got to be bred or trained to that certain extent, but generally every dog, when they start off as a 8-week-old puppy introduced into a family, is a loving dog. It really is how we shape their path in their life. They're not born and they want to guard the house and be aggressive and bite everyone. They're not born like that at all. It's how humans put our impact on them, and that's how they turn out.
How many beautiful creatures does your organisation, SABBR, I'm going to run with that, how many would go through? Because I imagine you'd be fairly under the pump.
Our biggest year to date was 214. We're obviously in October and we're at 234.
Oh my goodness.
So our biggest year we've ever done. We took in 9 dogs in the last 2 days. So litters of puppies,
that's
dogs.
a dog a day from rough calculations.
I think we'll be about that, yeah. And the pounds are never empty.
And you've only got 12 volunteers, I believe, is that right? 18, 12?
18 total, but about 12 of us who do the hands-on dog things. We're all mothers.
You have lives, you have kids, you have jobs.
Kids, full-time workers. Yeah, we've got our own dogs. I've got my own 2 dogs.
And you don't get any government funding, I believe.
No government funding. We're purely volunteers. We're not paid for any of the time, effort, money that we personally put in. And obviously we survive on donations from the general public, whether that's monetary or physically giving us dog beds and dog food.
That's what really surprised me when I had a look at SABBR and I saw the various things you do. You don't have your own kennels as such?
No kennels. We are entirely foster home. We have 85 dogs at the moment in fosters across Perth Metro. We have a kennels, and a massive shout out to Danceling Kennels, because they will occasionally help us with our emergencies in circumstances where we need to put a dog into kennels. We've got no other option. They help us immensely, so we're very lucky. But we don't actually have a kennel facility at all. That's ours. And
you're doing all of this work with, I guess, some adoption fees and the help from public, from donations and things.
Yeah, absolutely. So each dog is microchipped, vaccinated, and then desexed. Whether they're puppies, we obviously stay in touch, but we'll then desex them when they hit age. But otherwise, our adult dogs are all desexed before being adopted. Once you take out their vet work costs, an adoption fee,
nothing.
It doesn't. We're not making money. We're not profiting from this at all. We are barely covering our expenses. Every dog gets food and wormed and fleed. They need a bed. They need a lead. So it is a juggle.
It's a lot. It's incredible.
I
was quite shocked when I read just the amount of stuff you do, and I noticed as well you have a no-kill policy, so that requires a lot more work.
Which is, every dog deserves a chance, and you can't just put a dog into the too hard basket and move on. It's not like that, and we don't do that to humans, so why are we doing that to dogs?
My mum nearly did it to me in my younger years. I was this close to going
wish she did it
into the too hard basket, but she persevered, and look at me now. I'm talking to wonderful people.
Where do the majority of your dogs come from? Are they puppies or are they older dogs, or does that change?
4 or 5 years ago, it would have been adult dogs coming from private surrenders, obviously the general public who can no longer home their dog. Now, post-COVID, I would say 80% of our dogs are under 6 months old. They're coming in litters. what we think is happening is the financial crisis at the moment. People are breeding dogs to make money. And then when they're left with puppies they can't sell for $500 on Gumtree, who else is going to help them? Or they'll just put them at £1. And obviously a pound isn't going to euthanize puppies. We're taking a lot in from vets at the moment as well. Perfectly healthy dogs being euthanized.
The parallel there again, I think, with what we talk about on the show a lot. You see these gorgeous, intelligent creatures as companions or commodities.
Yeah.
We know the problem that's caused with greyhounds being solely seen as commodities up until recently. It sounds very similar with these breeders, that this is a money-making machine I've got here.
Yeah.
What's the fallout? What's the consequences? You're at the front end of that by the sound of it.
I mean, not everyone has bad intentions, and I think some people just generally do have accidents. That's why it's so important to de-sex your dog. Having 60,000 followers on our social media is great. We can find them homes, but it's a huge job for us, and it's a lot of pressure. Last week we took in 2 puppies that were dumped in a bush. So there is a lot of that also happening, and I wish people who had accidental litters or this kind of circumstance would just reach out rather than dump them. I think that a lot of the dogs, the COVID thing, people adopted dogs during COVID. They adopted these beautiful puppies and they were 8 weeks old, and that was great. And they were home all the time. And now everyone's gone back to work and they've gone back to the office. And now this dog that had someone 24/7 is on its own for 10 hours a day and is chewing the wall.
Miserable.
It's upset. It has no idea what's going on. I think a lot of owners need to really think about what they are actually going to do for that dog. You can't just leave that dog in the backyard for 10 hours and hope to God it won't dig up your flower bed, because it will. And there's so many resources out there that you can access for free that can help you enrich your dog's lives.
There's so much, and they're easy and not necessarily
they're not
costly
expensive
either. By making toys and different
absolutely
things for your dog to do during the day.
Yeah, and it's not
Activities.
just a walk.
And Maddie,
exactly.
And Maddie, I imagine the SABBR website would have some resources there. Check that out.
Yeah. But our Facebook has a messenger thing, and we'll always try and help you as much as we can. Our main goal is to keep dogs in their homes that they're in. So if people want to surrender and it's something that we think we can help with, we will offer as much advice as we can, bearing in mind we're all volunteers and we've got 85 dogs of our own at the moment in foster. But that is our goal, is we will always see if we can help them first before they go down the path of surrendering their dog.
Because a lot of people, it does break their heart to have to do that.
Oh yeah, it's awful.
Some people are legitimately having to give the dog up for reasons that they can't help, or as you say, might not know what to do.
Yeah, and I guess another one is the housing situation in WA at the moment. If it's the difference between putting your family with a roof over their head and you've got several children, or keeping your dog, the dog always loses out. And it's understandable.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
But it's tragic.
It's
tragic. Understandable.
It's awful. And it's heartbreaking for us taking those dogs away that they don't want to. Yeah. I know the laws have changed, but we're not seeing any impact on that at the moment.
We won't for
a very long time.
For a long time. Legislation, as we know, moves so very slow in this state.
Yes.
The puppy farming bill.
Yes.
Do you know much about that? Do you have
a little?
Will that have much of an impact on these backyard breeders?
I hope so. Yeah.
So you're crossing your fingers.
Crossing
like
our fingers.
Else.
Yeah. Will it?
Yeah.
You hope people don't breed dogs, and we've had plenty of hoarder cases. I'd say the last 6 months of 20, 30 dogs in a house and taking out several of them.
You mentioned, Maddie, 60,000 followers on your Facebook page. That's awesome, and I hope you share this with them as well.
Absolutely.
What can people do? Not everyone can be a ferocious advocate, but what's the major thing you need from the community in order to progress the work that you're trying to do?
Support, really. I think however you can give it. We'd love foster homes, foster carers. They are like unicorns at the moment. Whether you can help temporarily for a week, whether you can help home a dog until it's adopted, puppies, seniors. You work full time, you don't work, you have young kids, you don't, cats, chickens, anything, any kind of home. We probably have a dog that would fit it.
Right.
That's our main request, I would say. Some people can't, and that's absolutely fine. We do take donations. We are solely driven on donations. A lot of people also can volunteer time, whether that's taking these dogs to events. We have people who photograph the dogs. We have people who help move dogs across WA. Anything and everything is helpful. The same with donations of a physical kind, so beds, food, toys, leads, anything. We'll take what we can get, really. As I said, we aren't given government funding, so we really are relying on the general public for help.
And go to www.sabbr.com.au
Yes.
to get some info on that.
There's different ways on that and how you can help us.
It's a really good website, actually.
It is.
Thank you.
It's really well constructed. Free to hounds, lift your game. It's been wonderful to have you here, Maddie.
Thank you.
Clearly passionate about what you do. I'm always in awe and admiration of people like yourself and Mel who have lives and children and jobs and commit so much of your time and energy.
I work until, you work until about 10, 11 at night. You're texting carers at 9 o'clock, and then you get the odd one text you at 2 a.m. with a question. I start at 6 on this, so yeah it's full time.
And you don't get any remuneration whatsoever.
Absolutely nothing.
In fact, I'm sure some of your money goes into this as well.
Yeah, and I think a huge shout out to our president, Ashley. She is phenomenal. She drives all throughout Perth Metro. She visits nearly every dog herself personally. And, even if you think your fuel costs, we're not getting any kind of compensation for doing anything.
That speaks to me of a passion. You don't do this kind of stuff unless your heart is in it. Can I just once again draw a contrast between the kind of approach and the work that animal advocates do in that realm and compare that, juxtapose, if you will, the racing industry who get government handouts, who really wouldn't be in it. I posed a question on one of the pro races. Would you still love racing your dog if there was no money in it? If it's really your lifestyle and your hobby and you think they love to run, would you go out and race them if there was no prize money? Didn't get much of a response on that one. So I just think it's such a contrast that you do this with your sweat and blood and your time, and the other mob, I got a feeling they wouldn't do it if there wasn't something coming their way.
They wouldn't have to be paid incentives and bonuses,
breeding
prize money,
bonuses
even if they really just
So
wanted
if you love your freaking hobby,
pay for it yourself.
Pay for it yourself like these beautiful people do.
And then give 50% to rescues who help you the other end.
If you've got a different opinion than that and you're a pro racer, please come on the show. I'd love to have a chat. If you've got the balls to bring your case, then bring it. Feeding into that, Mel, I did have the most important question I was curious about. How Maddie feels about greyhound racing, the breeding rates of these dogs, and particularly what impact that might have on an organisation like yours.
I mean, obviously we're against greyhound racing entirely. I think anyone who loves dogs would be against greyhound racing and everything that comes with. We know that the rescue crisis in WA is huge. We advocate for staffies and bullies, but we also advocate for all kinds of dogs. So if we had the means, then we would obviously all work together to help greyhounds, staffies, bullies, any kind of dog. It's like a domino effect throughout WA. If we didn't have greyhound racing, you would be able to help with other rescues and things like that. Yeah. You'd have a life.
Yeah. No, I'll find something.
She'll find some other way to not have a life.
Time. I think I've learned so much more even from coming here about greyhound racing that I didn't know. I think it's atrocious. It's barbaric in its sport and obviously in everything that comes from that. And I think if the general public actually knew as much as you guys do, and I hope that this podcast gets that out, they would hate it too, and they would understand that it needs to end.
That is definitely our hope. Rescue groups have to deal with endemic issues. Like you mentioned before, there's accidental litters, there's overbreeding, and you do amazing work. What astounds me is that greyhound racing is literally a breeding ground for rescue groups to deal with stuff.
Yeah.
This is something we can actually effectively, there's a lot that you guys can't do really other than to help there's something in the greyhound field that can actually be done that
Absolutely, to
will
change all of it.
radically reduce the amount of rescue dogs required.
Exactly. And
So-
then the flow on goes to you guys.
Some more space, more people to work with, more resources. Let's get onto it.
Yeah.
Maddie, brilliant.
So nice to meet you.
Thank
and thank you
you.
for coming
Oh,
in.
It was
No,
amazing.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely, and I love to talk, obviously, about dog rescue. So it's
Yeah.
good to have
Absolutely.
like-minded folk.
And a big shout out to all the supporters of Staffy and Bully Breed Rescue, www.SABBR, SABBR. Go check them out. Thanks for being with us. Come and talk to us again one day, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Maddie.
Thanks.
That was very informative, and I think Maddie's just a lovely person.
She's great, isn't she?
It's a real joy to meet people who work in the advocacy arena, because the motivation there is a passion.
It is.
It doesn't come from financial gain, doesn't come from status, doesn't come from social media exposure, even though that helps the advocacy.
Yeah.
It comes from an inherent desire to support the vulnerable and make change.
Make things better.
It's lovely.
Imagine what the world could be like if we all did just a little bit.
Yeah. And
That'd be
we can all do our little bit.
Absolutely.
Check out SABBR, check out freethehounds.com.au. Go to the events we've mentioned, raise your voice, get educated, talk to your friends, especially your friends with opposing viewpoints. Be armed with the facts and information. Don't come in with personal comments and spurious arguments. Just know the facts and have a chat about it. And maybe one day we will get closer to releasing the hounds.